Start introductions. Hello, everybody. My name is Mercedes Franco. I am an associate professor of mathematics here at Queensborough Community College. I'm actually very happy to be here. This was my first job after I finished graduate school. I've been here for 5.5 years, and I have had the pleasure to work with the CSTEP program in the past. We ran a similar workshop about 2 or 3 years, perhaps 3 years ago. It was very well received. We have very good success stories in the sense that we were able to influence the students' decisions in terms of how much math they wanted to take and things like that. So hopefully we'll see some positive results from today's presentation. Presenting with me, I have some of the colleagues from the math department. They are Professor Vanessa Singroy, who is also a QCC alumna. So she was once sitting here in our rooms at the college, and of course she moved on to finish her bachelor's in mathematics education. She also has a master's and is now looking for opportunities to pursue doctoral studies in mathematics. We have Professor Clara Bangor, who is an expert in math anxiety, so you definitely want to stay all the way to the end of today's workshop, because the second part is on how to overcome math anxiety, and she will give you guidance and might give you also additional references, where to go, how to continue working on that aspect. Professor Donna Bocchio from the math department is giving us a hand with the use of clickers. You may have used this in some of your courses, I'm not sure, but definitely we will use them throughout the presentation, and hopefully we'll make them more interactive. You'll probably explain a little bit better, right, what it is. So I think that will be it. We are expecting 2 guests later on. One of them is another colleague, a professor from the math department. He's running another workshop right now, so he might be here for the second hour. We will introduce him when he arrives. And also a student, an engineering student who graduated from QCC, moved on to City College, got the bachelor's, and is also at this point looking for opportunities to pursue graduate studies. And he also has good information to share with you all. He has the experience of having been here, do the move to the 4-year institution, and he's looking for, to expand his career. So he should be able also to talk to you from that other perspective. And I think with those few words, we are going to start with the introduction about the use of clickers.
Okay, by now everybody should have gotten, or almost everybody should have gotten the white clicker. Looks just like the one I'm holding, except that it's white, not blue. It's really identical. And you should see 6 buttons on it, A, B, C, D, E, and an on-off switch. So the first thing I'm going to have everybody do is turn their clickers on by touching the on-off switch. And the first thing you should see then is a little blue indicator light on the top that shows that the power is on. So is everybody able to get the blue LED light to light up? Anybody have trouble? Sometimes the batteries die on these things. Everybody was able to get the blue light on? Okay, great. Okay, well, once you have it powered on, when you answer the questions, if it's a multiple choice answer, you're going to use the answer keys A, B, C, D, or E for your response. Now, some of the questions might not be strictly multiple choice. They may be yes/no answers, and in that case, we would use 1 for yes and 2 for no. If they're true/false, we would use 1 for true and 2 for false, or A for true or B for false. So it just depends on the type of question, and whoever is presenting will be able to explain what type of response you need to give. A couple of other words that are important to know when we talk about clickers. So you'll hear about voting and polling. Polling means that the clicker, and basically it is a receiver unit, is ready to receive your answer. So when I say I'm going to start the polling, it means that the receiver is ready to accept your answer. If you try to give an answer before it turns on, you're going to see 3 red flashes where it says vote status. That means it did not take your answer. So you want to make sure that the polling has started, and you'll see up there how many seconds you have left. If it says wait until you see the seconds flash up there before you try to vote. Now, students always ask, can I change my vote? And the answer is yes. If the second clock is still clicking down, you can change your answer. You cannot vote twice. What it will do is will only take your last answer. So if you do want to change your mind, you can do so. Okay, any questions about how we're going to use the clickers in the presentation? Okay, with that, I guess Mercedes, do you want to get started?
Yes, okay. So I'm going to start with the reflection. This is something that I actually do with my students in the different classes that I have taught and teach currently from different levels. And it gives me an idea of where they are with respect to mathematics. What are their thoughts about mathematics as a discipline that is being useful, that is useful in general or to them personally, about their feelings toward math, comfort levels with math, or situations that require math. So that's what I'm gonna get from, and I'm gonna get like a sense of where you are at. Maybe I will be preaching to the converted and you all love math already, so that make it easier for me, maybe not. So we're gonna sense. And then the good thing about the clickers is I don't know who said what, but I just have this rough idea of how many people in the group think one way or the other. So how do I go? I read the questions, and then you
I
time
can
it.
use this,
Yes.
and you can tell me when you want me to start
Okay.
going, but I think maybe your questions are not always
Sometimes,
ABCD,
exactly.
so
Sometimes
you'll
I want to
have
explain how I want you to respond, to look at the question and then respond to it.
Do you
Okay.
want me to advance the slides? I should be able to do this on here. Yep.
Okay. So this is the first. This is the first item that I want to ask about. I'm giving you two statements in one slide. One statement is, I believe mathematics is interesting and fun. If that was me reading this, I would be, oh yeah, I'm right here at this end of the spectrum. But I know some people might be in the opposite end. They might feel like, no, math is dull and boring. So if you feel that you are at this other end of the spectrum, you may choose E as your answer. Maybe you have a neutral position with respect to how fun or interesting math is. Neutral will be right in the middle. Or maybe you are leaning towards one end, but you are not right at the extreme, so maybe you are leaning towards, it's boring, or you're leaning towards, well, it's kind of interesting. So unfortunately, I only have 5 positions for you to choose from. Each one is identified with a letter. In a perfect world, it will be a continuum, so you could be anywhere in that spectrum from one end to the opposite end. So is it clear? So you choose the letter that better describes your position in this continuum. So are you here? Strongly believe that this is boring, or you are at the other end. This is super fine, the best thing in the world. Ready?
So
Okay,
shall we
let's
start?
choose your position.
Okay, so you can see it says wait, and now we can start with the voting.
And it's anonymous, so I'm not gonna know who loves math as much as I do. We know how many.
There were 19 given out, and we have 18 responses.
So we will know when we have all responses.
So that means one person didn't vote. And I also want to point out that these clickers were distributed randomly, so we don't know who was giving what response. It's all anonymous.
You can. Okay. Well, they shouldn't be changing this around, but they could do that.
So that's the result. Let me see if I
Okay,
can move
neutral.
that.
This is not bad. This is good. Neutral and then leaning towards. You find it interesting and fun. Okay.
Very interesting.
That's a very good,
Yeah.
yes, attitude. I like it. Okay, so we're ready for the next. So you know where you are at, and then you can also compare against, the whole group. The next one, I have to come back.
Sometimes it just doesn't
I'll
work
go back to the
advance.
podium,
Yeah.
and then probably stay here for the next slide. Yeah. Okay, so here it goes. Go. Once again, I have 2 statements that they sound opposite, right? And then once again, you have 5 places where you can stand in terms of agreement or disagreement with these statements. A, you know you can do well in math. E, you think you're not good in math. Or B, C, D, somewhere in between. So,
I think the clicker has gone off whatever we did here, so I'm going to just pause this a minute and then go back. Okay. Are we ready to start the polling?
we need another screen so we can see things that are happening in our back.
Is everyone ready to vote?
Yes?
Okay.
They want to vote.
Oh,
They
yes,
want to say
yes,
it. They
okay.
want to say it. They want to click.
Okay, I think we have everybody, so I can stop that over there. Okay, let's see our results.
Very good. This is my group. Very good. So, see, we have a large number of people who feel that they know they can do well in math, very good. And then a few who are either neutral or feeling a little bit less secure about that. Okay, we're gonna move to the next one. We have a series of questions, so since you're becoming more familiar with the technology, I'll probably have to talk less. And also to kind of get the format of the questions and how to answer. So let's see if I can get it to go to the next. Okay, confidence levels. I am confident in my ability to learn math and perform well on mathematical tasks versus I lack confidence in my ability to learn math and perform well on mathematical tasks. And we can open, Very good. Leaning towards this side. My side. I like it. Okay, very good. The next. I feel at ease in a situation requiring mathematical thinking versus I feel dread, anxiety, and nervousness in a situation requiring mathematical thinking. More time, 17. Or we only 17? Okay, so let's see. More distributed this time, I think. We have 6 people at this end, but then the other ones are sort of distributed between the other categories, and then we have a high 4 at the end. So you like math, you think it's interesting, you know you can do well, but yes, you feel that anxiety, no? Some of you. I often volunteer to participate in classroom discussions and activities. And then we have the opposite end where you don't unless you're asked to. This is also about those comfort levels doing mathematics.
This again. Sorry, I dropped the remote.
I'm thinking this is the first time I do this. Like next time I'll have music. So while I wait for everybody to click, there will be some, I don't know, music. Either suspense or fun music or something. Jeopardy music. Yeah, something like that. Okay, so here are the responses then. Okay. So 5 people neutral, or don't have a clear, I guess, vision of where they stand. Like, I don't know. And then 6 people, yes, who feel strong about participating in class activities for Johns unless they are asked. Very good. Our expert, by the way, on math, anxiety, and attitudes towards math is taking notes. She'll use this later on. We'll incorporate this in her work. Oh, I'm waiting for you. Okay. Sorry. Persistence. I keep persisting in order to complete a mathematical task or problem versus I easily give up when trying to complete a mathematical task or problem. Everybody. High levels of persistence. Very good.
Next slide.
I wanted to ask, but I didn't include that in a question. How many students are in STEM disciplines? I know this is highly advertised among STEM students, but I wanted to make sure, is everybody in STEM? How many people is in STEM disciplines, like the sciences, engineering, maybe math? Okay. But not everybody? Then technology? Okay, because usually you get strong responses when people is already in these disciplines. Okay, this is interesting. We're ready for the next. value of math in general, or usefulness of math in general.
We start?
Yes, please, go ahead. Yes, sorry, I didn't want to read it, but yeah. Okay, 18 responses. Very good. So most people see the value of mathematics in general terms and how it applies to everyday life. Very good. And then we have a few who need to see our examples. Okay, we're ready for the next. I believe mathematics is currently useful to me. So this is a very personal thing, to me, and will be important in my future activities and career. So you see or anticipate the impact of having a good background in mathematics. Or at the other end, I believe that mathematics will not be useful to me. It's not being useful now, and it will not be in the future. Very good. Very good. And these are the modern times, so most people do know the value of math. Very good. So I'm glad we're getting these type of responses. And then the next. Okay. So you see the value, you think it's interesting, you are very persistent, you like to participate in class, you really welcome math into your life in many aspects. And moreover, are you willing to take as much math as you can during your education? Or are you trying to avoid using math while in college? More uniform distribution this time. Okay. Requirement versus choice. Choosing to take more courses, or you do it just because it's required. Okay, good. Let's go to the next. Nature or nurture? It is something that some people is born with, a talent, or is it something that is learned that people can actually work on and improve? And this particular statement is about that, nature or nurture. Math is for geniuses. Very good. Very good. And actually, I have a slide about a statement from a field medalist. A field medal is the equivalent of the Nobel Prize in mathematics. We don't have a Nobel Prize in mathematics, we have the field medals, which is given every 4 years to a very, very distinguished mathematician, usually somebody young, which means 40 or younger. And then this mathematics professor from UCLA, the University of California in Los Angeles, received the prize a few years ago. And he himself was a gifted child. Yet, when he talks to people who are interested in mathematics, he's very good at recognizing that math is not for geniuses, and actually to make contributions in mathematics is not the result of great ideas that come to you like, I don't know, out of somewhere else, like a magic thing that happens, but it's actually the result of hard work. And it's not just the hard work of one person. Contributions to mathematics are the result of many people who work hard on their disciplines for years, decades, even centuries. So I'm very, very happy to present him as a role model, because he's someone who could actually try to take some credit and perpetuate the stereotyping. And he's not. He is very good at actually, open the eyes of people in general and realize that this is for anybody who wants to do it. Okay, so this is Terence Tao field medalist and professor of mathematics at UCLA. One more question. Actually, there are a few more questions. I changed the order. So I thought this one was going to be about nature versus nurture again, but it's not. Stereotyping, math is for geeks or nerds. What do you think? Strongly disagree. Very good. And I also have a statement from Terence Tao, the field medalist that I introduced before, because I really like what he said in an interview. He's originally from Australia, by the way, but he works here in the US. And he was interviewing Australia right after he won the field medals. And he was saying, mathematics just needs more marketing. We need to market better our profession. And here are some comments that he shared at the time in that interview, which I just love. I think it's kind of funny, but it's very valuable. So once again, trying to talk to those people who look at math from the wrong perspective, nerds or billionaires. So since he was being interviewed in Australia, he talks about how people see mathematics here in the US. And at least here, compared to other places, there is more respect for mathematicians. And then he brings up the Google founders who are PhDs in mathematics, and they actually continue to recruit people for Google who have a strong background in mathematics. They know that mathematics give you that something that will matter in these disciplines. So, but I like it the way he puts it. Who is laughing now, right? If the math is making you a millionaire, who is laughing now? So in the past, people used to laugh at those who were interested in mathematics and call them nerds and things like that. Can I move it, or you're still reading it? Should I move to the next? Okay. Okay, another nature or nurture. Men are better than women in mathematics. You think there is a math gene distributed by gender? What's that? Okay, strong disagreement, but we still see a few people who are either neutral or leaning towards the other end. Okay, and there is no research of evidence that men are naturally endowed for mathematics, and on the contrary, there is a lot of evidence showing that women can do as well as men if given the same opportunities and encouragement. And actually, women, when they reach middle school, that's when they start to run away from math. They usually enjoy math, participate in mathematics activities, but then it's towards that age, sort of puberty, when they start, it becomes uncool, and they shy away from mathematics. So it's more of a cultural thing, as opposed to something that has to do with natural talents. And let me see the next slide. Nature or nurture? I see these high columns at A and then D. Nature or nurture? What do you think? I think it's nurture. And I have a very nice quote. I didn't write it, but I'll repeat it, that I saw on Saturday on a special, I went too fast, but I'll leave it. On a special show called Your Money from CNN. And they were interviewing this expert on global economies, and they were talking about the difference in some of the countries in Asia and the US, and the perceptions that the people have, and how many people here is pursuing STEM disciplines versus there. And here is what he said. I'll have his name actually later on because I have another quote from him. He said, do you know what's the problem? We cannot compete, for example, with countries like China, because Chinese girls look at people like Bill Gates the way our girls here look at Britney Spears. So it's a cultural thing. See the role models that they have and the people they want to emulate. There is cultural. They value education highly. In particular, they value mathematics education. Here, we still are working with the issue of the double standards. If it is about literacy, oh no, it's not acceptable for people not to know how to read or write. But if it is about math, somehow we think it's acceptable. And we excuse it and we say, well, not everybody has it. There is no excuse, right? We have that double standard. It's not just here in the US, but in other Western countries like my own, I'm from Latin America. We have those double standards. So I actually appreciate that about the people who come from Asia, that they have this high value for STEM disciplines, therefore they work hard at it, so they want to be good at it. So actually we need to learn from that and change our culture here. And I have only 2 examples of very influential and powerful women in STEM disciplines. I have a Nobel Prize in Medicine. She received the prize in 2009. She's a microbiologist. And we also have somebody from Google. We usually see male faces from Google. And I have a very nice quote about her, Marissa Mayer. They said, she puts the search in Google, the email in Gmail, the pin in Google Maps, and the world on the Google Earth. She is the person that has made, because this is already happening, that has made Google a verb in American households. You say, let me Google it, right? So a lot of the design of the Google search engine that we now know, the maps and all these other features that I mentioned were possible because of her contributions. And she's currently the Vice President for Consumer Products at Google. She's 34. She joined Google in 1999. I think, she was 20 at the time, the first female engineer to be hired at Google. No, she wasn't 20 at the time. She was the 20th employee. So Google was just starting, and she was the first female to be hired at Google. At 33, she made it to the top 50 most influential women by the Fortune magazine. They select the 50, and this is the youngest anyone has ever made it to the list. She made it to the list at 33. She's now 34, like most people in the technology field. Okay, so this is good for the reflection. We're going to move on to the next part of the workshop. This is the end, and I welcome Professor Vanessa Singroy that will introduce.
Well, Dr. Franco spoke a bit about some preconceived notions that we have about mathematics, whether it be about our own abilities therein, or about how we perceive mathematics in daily life, its importance, right, and so forth. So I'll continue this and talk about, places. Oh, pardon me. Why do we go? Yes, but I put the clicker on. So stop that and move this out of the way.
No, just hit B and it'll go.
Oh. Alright, so topics that we will the topics that we will cover, why is math important in everyday life? Okay. How is it used? Why is it beneficial? And types of careers that you might entertain, being that some of you have already exhibited an interest in mathematics, and those of you who don't have an interest in mathematics are probably thinking about careers that have some mathematical foundation, whether or not you realize it. And particularly, how is it important for those of you who are STEM majors? And by a show of hands, that was about close to half of the group here, right? So that section will be particularly of interest to you. So let's talk about the things we associate with everyday math, and I'll throw this out to you. What are things that you do associate in daily life, as students, as members of society, with mathematics? Yes, I'll do.
Shopping.
Shopping. Why shopping?
Because when there's
person who likes shoes. That is a very important skill. How else? Yes.
Bills.
Bills, paying bills, yes.
Depending on either cellular or like internet or any other type of bill, you want to average out the amount that you need to pay for this and that was
Absolutely. But you said a little something at the very beginning. You said you're paying your bills online?
No. Like you have to pay internet bills or phone bills.
Oh, okay. So your various bills, you have to really figure out how much is it that you have and how much can you spend and a budget. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
In banking,
Yeah.
figuring out which bank is offering the best rates if the banks calculate their interest rate differently.
Right. I mean, especially in the loop of what we've just seen. I mean, God help you get to go take out a mortgage. Really do your shopping. And yes, taxes, especially this time of year. Speaking to someone who hasn't done them yet. Any others? All right. So some of that you mentioned are actually ones that commonly do come to mind when we think about math in everyday life. We think about paying our bills, right? No one mentioned gambling, which I think is a good sign. All right, at least in this group. That's what you want to veer away from. All right. No one mentioned buying a car, so maybe we're taking the bus. Okay. But purchasing power, absolutely paying our bills. And, you know, you actually did mention some of the things that some of us don't typically associate with everyday math. We talked about mortgages and banking, investments. You know, maybe it's like a little too young for that, but something you might want to think about. You know, later on when you do have your career, want to put away a little bit in the way of a nest egg, and 401k is another type of investment. But the things that we don't always notice, where math is prevalent in our everyday life, right? For instance. Right? No one mentioned email, no one mentioned our cell phones. And the reason I have this CD here is, you probably don't think about it, but when you play your CD, right, there's a lot of coding involved, right? So the CDs is actually coded, and these encryptions are read by the CD player, which translates them into the music that you hear, all right? So whether or not you are aware of the math that's prevalent in your life, it's nonetheless something that you benefit from and enjoy. And for those of you who, you know, have those iPods on, you know, put your hair down. You particularly benefit from those things. But there are things that we don't always notice where math is as well. For example, other ATM machines also have a lot to do with coding, and you can appreciate this, especially if you've ever suffered from identity theft, you know. And likewise, similar type of encryptions are available online, on computers, reading, what have you. Okay, so the point being is that those of us who realize the importance of mathematics are in really a fortunate position for not just realizing its importance, but those of us who have acquired those skills, mathematical foundation, it's something that translates whether or not you, for instance, those of you taking calculus, whether or not you're able to perform a derivative. No one's going to come up to you maybe on the middle of the street and say, can you do this optimization problem for me? All right? But the skills you learn in mathematics are transferable, right? And not just potential employers, but what you will find in your everyday life is that it engenders the following things. Logical thought, right? You think about the sequence of things, the order in which they come and what they might lead to, right? We might be able to formulate a problem in a way which allows for computation or decision. So when you're talking about, for example, purchasing those pair of shoes at 25% off, you know, but with 8% tax, in a quarter, you might be able to make that on the fly, right? And being able to make deductions from assumptions. Those of you who've ever taken a proofs class, taken geometry, especially if you're taking geometry in high school, that's all about proofs. The entire, at least 2 semesters there where you probably don't even see a number, all right? But it's all about statements and assumptions that are made, and then what can we derive from the things we have at hand, given a set of units. And finally, it helps us to really formulate advanced concepts. Now, these are all transferable skills, right? And they're all really skills that we will see in many different types of fields, in finance and statistics and engineering, computers, teaching, accounting, just to name a few. So realizing where they are in everyday life is great, but also realizing that they touch all these aspects that we don't typically entertain as being mathematically based, or at least having some influence, is something that we also need to consider, because especially where you are right now, you want to have that skill under your belt. You want to have the ability for logical thought, for making decisions based on computations, for at least formulating and placing things within the parameters of an advanced concept, which will make you more desirable later on. All right? So, question, and I don't have a clicker to this, but I'll definitely throw it out to you. What are some things you think you can do with a math degree? Yes?
Start a business.
Start a business? Domingo? Yes. Definitely. You can have a MBA, or even if you don't have an MBA, you probably have already acquired the skills, knowing your basics in finances. A lot of small businesses, they don't have MBAs, but they're rather successful because their owners know a thing or two about navigating, in finance. Anyone else? Yes.
Become an analyst?
Become an analyst. I mean, what type of analyst are you referring to?
Some sort of a business analyst?
Business analyst, right? There are analysts in many types of fields. In fact, analysis in general is a math field, And what else?
Teaching.
Teaching, yeah, that's one that was mentioned. You could become a mathematics teacher, or science, biology, any of those have mathematical applications.
In class we talked about the basketball game, kind of football, so I guess you can do a basketball game.
You can win a basketball game. Alright. For those of you, I had made this is Kalila, by the way. She is one of my students in my pre-calculus class, and I know nothing about sports. Except, I do know when the Yankees are in the World Series. I know this because I'm staying up every night watching them. But outside of that, I had come by this story once about this basketball game that was held at the Staples Center. And in this particular basketball game, I guess there are a number of seconds to the end. Like there's a basketball game, you can help me out here. It is timed, right? And so there are a number of seconds that, like for example, if you're leading and you don't want the other team to get the ball, right? So the coach employed someone with a mathematical background, and he said, please figure out for me, because I know the ball has to always be in play, all right? Please figure out for me, if my best player were to throw this ball up in the air, how many seconds it would take to come back down. And this is probably something you can do. Those of you who you don't need calculus for this, you're even pre-calculus for this. Simple quadratic equation, right? Those of you taking physics, acceleration, what have you. So he figured out how many seconds it would take him to, if he threw the ball up in the air and for it to come back down, how many seconds would be wasted. And it was enough to ensure that his team would win if they had the lead to begin with. Alright, so one of those. If you're ever in a really tough basketball game and you want to make sure that you win, right, that's one way to go about it. I'm sure I think that's the Staples Center. Anyone else? Alright, these are all good options, alright? But the American Mathematical Society thought about this as well. And some of the things that we haven't mentioned, right? Stockbroker, animator, epidemiologist, someone who actually studies the origins of illness, right? Statistician, trader, teacher, which was mentioned, forensic analyst, underwriter, banker, professor, right? Actuarist, an actuarist is someone who analyzes the risks in markets. It's actually a very lucrative field. These are just a few among many, right? In fact, I would strongly urge those of you who are considering careers, ones mentioned here, or even ones that you might not think have some mathematical foundation, to really visit this site. This is a very, very helpful site, and I've provided actually the link on this PowerPoint, and we'll take you to it for a bit. So, things that we wouldn't even consider as having mathematical foundations are seen here, and with actual testimonials from people within those fields who can speak to how they use mathematics in their particular occupation. So one that actually got me when I looked at this, and maybe it's because of my own preconceived notions about where math is prevalent, but automatically I looked at legal services. And other than, billing someone by the hour, I wondered, where is math used in legal services? And so I took a look at legal services, and what is under this, and this is probably if you're really entertaining the notion of what is best suited for me, right? Going into each of these. Now, this one has testimony by a young lady by the name of Virginia Piercy from the University of California, and she is a lawyer. Here's a little picture of her, right? And she talks a bit about how math, she uses the math that she learned on her job. And you can welcome to read this for yourself, but she talks in large part that it's not so much the actual formulas that she learned in her math class, but the logical thinking that was developed in those classes that she applies to her job. And this is, as we said, math is a transferable discipline. Right? The skills that you learn therein, you can put to practice in almost any occupation. So I invite you to take a look at it for yourself. Let's go back, and the link is provided right here. Okay. So I guess we have a clicker question at this moment. So those of you not interested in a math major. So let's consider 21 disciplines or fields of study listed on the right. And how many of these do you think require some mastery, or at least a bit of math? 5 or less, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, or 16 to 21? And before we start the timer in this, I'm going to have you take a moment to read them. Let's give you a few seconds, and then we'll start the timer. Okay, so have we taken a moment? So we'll begin the polling whenever you're ready. Okay, so for the 13 of you that actually participated in this, right, most of you guessed that it was somewhere between 11 to 15 of these jobs required some mathematical. I'm sorry, the E, right. Pardon me, I'm sorry. 16 to 21, yes. So most of you think that it's on the higher end of the spectrum. So let's actually take a look. Because the jobs that are listed here, let's see if I can get back to this. Right. Some of which are jobs that are actually things that if you look on these disciplines, in fact, math is relevant to all these fields, and mainly, I'm sorry, I can't circle it, numbers and operations. The X's actually indicate that there are certain mathematical applications in each of these fields. So be it anthropology to sociology, there's math required for each of these disciplines. So no matter what discipline you choose to actually go into, you are guaranteed that somewhere along the way you are encountering it. And I often come across students who, unfortunately I don't know what this says about me as a teacher, but they come to me and they basically say, if I do this, will I have to do any math? Alright, so, if this, because I want this to be the last math class I take, so if I become a hairstylist, will I have to do any math? And oftentimes I don't know the answers to these questions, alright? But I can almost guarantee you that any of the disciplines that you choose to pursue here at QCC will involve some mathematics along the way. Alright, so if you're thinking of getting away from it, I'm sorry, first of all. Okay. But accepting this as a fact might help you to open up your options. So for those of you who are STEM candidates, and I think that's about half of this room, right? We're going to consider the 25 fastest growing occupations in the U.S. And how many?
There are two questions. I forgot to send it, right? So you don't know that.
No.
Right, so first think about the 25 fastest growing occupations in the U.S. First you have to imagine what they are. Which occupations are those? Ooh, okay. How many of those do you think are STEM related? So make it wide guess, right? You don't know which occupations are those, but you have to guess how many of those 25 fastest growing occupations are STEM related. Then we give them the list,
okay.
and then they can read the different occupations and try to guess again.
So is it-
educated guess.
So do you want them to guess before and after?
Before seeing the list,
Okay.
because the second time around it would be more like an educated guess.
Alright, so supposing whatever those 25 are in your mind, right, take and guess at how many do you think actually are STEM related. And I'll start polling.
Just make it wide guess.
It is a lot of
It's
guess.
a wide guess, yeah. You don't even know what those professions are.
Okay, so it's like a compare and contrast type of thing. Alright, so, wow, 73% of you think that it's all of those professions, right?
Or a large number of them, no? We could include
Because it's
21 to 25.
E was 25, right? So
21 to 25.
Oh, 21 to 25.
A big number, yeah.
Yes, if you wanna move that, just use the mouse to drag that out of the way.
So we're going to close it for the moment though, because we're going to the next slide, which actually shows us what those 25 are.
So this is actually a very good audience.
Right.
Because these are the 25 fastest growing occupations. So when you see them, when you read what they are, then you have a better ability to say how many are STEM related.
Now these are the 25, and just to explain a little bit about what this table is saying, it has essentially the employment numbers from 2008 and what are the projected employment numbers in these fields in 2018 and the percent change therein. The icon, the symbols and the icons in the right column is essentially the earnings of those respective jobs. And while it's not so much important that we have a key for what each of those dollar signs stands for, it's clear to us that, of course, those that have 4 of the green dollar signs are more lucrative fields than ones with less. Right, so take another look at this, and we'll open the polling again, and based on what you see, make another guess on which one of these do you think are STEM related. I'm going to open the polling. Whenever you're ready.
So you still think that about 21 to 25 are STEM related?
We have one less voter this time. But,
So actually more people will lean towards the high end.
right. So you're, for the most part, you're sticking to your guns here. Alright? So let's actually see which of these are in fact STEM related. Alright, so each that has an arrow pointing to it has either some mathematical application in it, or you're required to take mathematics courses in order to
Science course.
or science courses in order to perform these jobs. So in all, we have 23 of the following 25 are STEM related. So those of you who guessed in that 21 to 25 range, all right, you're absolutely on point, all right? And these are the top 25 fastest growing. If you'd like to look at the top 100, you can actually go to the following link. Forbes.com is where we got this, right? And I can guarantee you that most of them are along the same proportion. You would see that most of them, in fact, are STEM-related fields. So if you're considering any of these, the point being here, it's kind of hard to get away from these, right? That most of them are, in fact, STEM-related. Now, out of curiosity, how many of these did you insert?
This might be the last one.
Okay, so we have another bit coming up here, but of the top 20 bachelor level salaries in the U.S., and I guess they have to make a educated guess here without seeing
Right.
what those bachelors are.
But there is only one question this time.
Alright.
It's not follow-up.
How many do you assume are STEM related? So again, you don't know what the top 20 bachelor level salaries are, but how many would you assume, you may have stabbed in the dark, are in fact STEM related? So let's take a look. So 77% of you said that 11 to 15 of those jobs are in fact STEM related. We looked at the top 20. Now actually let's take a look at the
They say D, 16 to 20.
six, I'm
There
sorry.
is no E, yeah, somebody voted
For E.
And that's okay, if there
That's
were
okay.
more jobs, there would be more STEM.
So let's take a look at the actual number of jobs. All right, so these are the top 20 bachelor level salaries, and as you can see, 19 of them are actually STEM related. And I would actually make the case that the construction management is somehow STEM related, because you still probably have to know a bit about finance, you have to know a bit of geometry, you're in construction, so if you really wanted to make the case, you could say all of the 20 are, but based on the information that we gathered, only 19 of the 20 are. So the point being here is that no matter what discipline you choose, you will have some mathematics embedded within it, all right? And the most lucrative jobs are in fact ones that have more mathematical relevancy, and in this case, more STEM relevancy. And most of the sciences, the technologies, and all of them are premised on math itself. Hopefully we've given you something to think about. I think that concludes my segment of the presentation.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna talk a little bit about how the global economy is changing and how this is gonna change the prospects for all of us in terms of employability and what are the jobs out there for us in the current century, which already started. Just wanted to say something to follow up on her part of the presentation. When we were putting together this and I was researching information, it was so hard for me to make the case just for math. The workshop was about math. I'm from the math department. They asked me to put it together because, come and speak on behalf of math, motivate people to do math. Why is this important for them, even though they come from other disciplines? But it was so hard for me to detach the math from the STEM. You know that STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, mathematics. I can't anymore. For me, math is so linked and interconnected with all these other disciplines in science, engineering, and technology that I cannot talk about math without thinking about the big picture, which is how this influence the other disciplines. So I really end up talking about STEM. That's how I felt, like, all the information we're getting is STEM, but the math is behind everything there. So anyway, think about the global economy and how things are changing in the world right now. There is a lot of discussion nowadays about developing America's workforce, developing what they call the 21st century skills, so that the U.S. may maintain its position in terms of how it competes with other nations in terms of economic factors. If you look back at history, we see how the economics have changed over the years. So in the past, we have agrarian economies where the skills required were very concrete, and then over the years, as we have been through different phases, the industrial era, the information era, and then now we're moving into the innovation one. The skills are the same, but then we keep demanding more from the workforce. And then not only we require concrete skills, but we need people who can handle the abstract, people who can be interactive and very creative. Looking at statistics from 1916 to the early century, we see a decrease in certain professions and an increase in other professions. And then if we look at the graph and pay attention to the meaning of the different ones, going down, the demand for jobs, simple jobs, like truck driving. We're not going to require many people with these skills to fulfill job demand because we don't have that much anymore. People that do office work, simple paperwork, also going in decline. Even routine manual work, like the work you will see in assembly lines, is also sinking, going down. What's up over the years are jobs that require these higher order thinking skills for people that will be on the top, serving as consultants, or people that will be very creative, designing new things, like engineers. Okay? So this is what is happening. So there is a great need. We should get ready and prepare for that. If we put this in context, what is going on around the world? More often than not, routine work is going to other countries, usually less developed countries. And then the more developed countries are doing most of the creative work. And you will see there is a smaller share of that, right? And this is for the people who are highly qualified. So once again, people who have a strong background in mathematics and people who go into STEM disciplines may have access to these jobs, the more competitive ones. Also, for anyone who is interested in keeping the U.S. On the lead in terms of economic factors, then we need to realize, yes, that the workforce in America needs those skills, needs to be prepared. And where there is great need, there are great opportunities. Bill Gates has been saying that he has a hard time recruiting people for his company. When he goes to all these computer science departments across the US, he doesn't find enough people with the skills that are required to come and join the company and keep it on top. So we need people who are highly prepared. And then no matter what you plan to do, not everybody has to be an app developer, not everybody has to be an engineer, but believe us, no matter what, you're gonna need that math. But moreover, if you do it and you do a lot of it, you are gonna be really very well prepared to go in any direction that you want because of those transferable skills. Remember those higher order thinking skills. Across all sectors in the US. This is not just people in higher education. This is not just people in STEM. This is a survey of all Americans across all sectors. Most people think, 3/4 of the population, most people think, yes, we do need this STEM preparation in order to stay on top. So once again, this is reinforcing that fact that there is a great need, we just need to be prepared. Everybody, not everybody, but a large sector of the population agrees on that. And this is the program that I mentioned before. Your Money from CNN is online. It's from Saturday, March, what was that? 5? This Saturday by noon, they have the video clip of the whole show. There is one segment in which Fareed Zakaria is being interviewed, and they are talking exactly about the changes in the global economy, where the jobs are going, who is doing the creative work, who is going to do the work for which they will pay only cents. He was saying, if we want to compete with people that is going to earn cents of dollars, we already lost. The only way we can compete is by trying to get those jobs that require more sophistication. And the bottom line was, the interviewer asking, okay, what can we do here in the U.S.? How do we take advantage of what's happening everywhere else? They are taking this type of lower paying jobs. What is left for us? And this was his bottom line: education, education, education. That was his bottom liner. And he says it's not just the education that ends with the bachelor's. And he did talk about those skill sets that you can transfer. He says successful people are going to be mobile and very dynamic, people who can adapt to change. So, in case you don't know it, the right start is here and now. It turns out that more than 40% of people who graduated from science and engineering disciplines in the U.S. have attended community colleges at some point in their educational paths. So you are starting in a good place. Don't think that those jobs out there are only for those who started at MIT or Harvard or other institutions that we consider prestigious, right? Doesn't matter where you start. What it matters is where you take it to. So this is a great start. More than 40% of people who finish degrees in these disciplines, and I didn't mention this, these are bachelor's and master's degrees. More than 40% have started at community colleges in the US. Things that you can do while you are here. Yes, take more of those math courses. Definitely your algebra, statistics, calculus courses. If you have a specific interest, we could give you even more advice. Differential equations, independent studies, many things you can do in math. But then look at the other disciplines that are relevant to your chosen career path and do as much of it as you can. In the classroom, connect to your professors. Inquire about the research activities, if there are opportunities for you to get involved in research projects or internships. But beyond the classroom walls, there are other ways in which you can gain a STEM experience, right? Or develop STEM hobbies, which will build up in your skills, in your networks, that will help you later on also with employability. So here are just a few examples of things that you can do. The college, by the way, has now a service learning program, and there is people from STEM disciplines doing projects on service learning. So these are things that will put you in the community in which you will be able to use the skills and theories you are learning in class. You will put them in practice while helping the community. This is also another way to get experience. So anyway, you can see the list of many things you can do beyond the classroom walls. And after this, we just want to thank you for being with us. Open the floor for questions, and after that, you'll have your opportunity to talk about overcoming math anxiety. Another thing that this guy in CNN was talking about is languages. So that's why I put the thank you note in so many languages. He said, if you have a second language, cultivate that. Cultivate that, because they are going to need people who can negotiate things with employees in China, with employees in other places. So if you speak Chinese, if you speak any other language, cultivate this and see it as an asset for your future career. As we become global and companies will have pieces here and there, they'll need people who can communicate in multiple languages. So thank you everybody for being here, for your patience. If you have any questions, please. This is a good time. Otherwise, we can move on with the overcoming math anxiety part. So, up to you. If the students have any questions about this part of the presentation. Okay.
Well, I'm Clara Weingert, and this is probably going to be the fastest math anxiety workshop I've ever done, because I've done many of them on the campus. So what I think I'm going to do, I have some slides, but I'm changing my whole focus within 10 minutes. What I'll do is I'm going to hand out some sheets. This one is about examination skills, how to take tests in mathematics. And we'll go around, we have enough for everyone. How to take notes in mathematics. We'll have 4 sheets. How to read a math textbook. Okay, this is another sheet. We'll get back to the point here. And study skills. How to study. What I'm going to do is really a totally different focus, completely. I actually had in mind I had some slides. I think what I'm going to do is work at the statistics. While it's going around, there's going to be 4 sheets. I'm going to write down some statistics that I picked up here. 42% felt at ease in a math class. Okay, I'll be talking for about 10 minutes just so we can get some feedback. That means it was less anxiety. Just a couple of these things that we can focus on in the workshop. There'll be 4 sheets that you have here. We had 63% basically. Keep on persisting. Keep on persisting. That's pretty good here. When doing a math problem. Just a couple of these again that I'm going to focus on. We have, that means they don't give up. Okay, we have also 56% think that math is a worthwhile subject. Okay, that's another thing, worthwhile as opposed to a waste of time. Okay, let's take a look and see if there was anything. Usefulness of math, 73% said math is useful. Okay, now in my book here, people said 50% thought math is interesting and fun, 58% said they can do math, and 56% are confident in math in this group. So we have basically a group that's pretty confident here. Halfway, as opposed to being not confident in math. Maybe what I could do is show my slides very quickly. I'll just bring it with the coping with the math anxiety. And what we're going to do is, let's focus, we have 4 sheets in front of us as well. We have study skills, test-taking habits, how to read a math textbook, and note-taking. And what I want to find out from the group, usually my portion is, how do we help each other? There's 42% who felt at ease in a math class. How can we help the people who don't feel at ease? We're talking about here 58% who don't feel at ease in a math class. Can we make any suggestions here to help those people who are not at ease? Any ideas? Okay, why did we write down, for those who wrote down that we feel at ease in a math class, what makes us at ease in a math class? Any ideas? We have a new set of people here. Well, who came in? What do you think?
I think the way the professor might explain the problem.
The way the professor explains the problems. Any other ideas? What else makes us at ease? What makes you at ease?
Practice.
What is that?
Practice.
Practice. That's study habits. How the professor explains the problem. Practice. What makes you at ease in the math class? How you apply the math to daily life, and we've heard some really, really good applications. So maybe some of these things, studying beforehand, having a good study schedule, will help us to make our feelings in a math class more at ease. Okay, that's the first thing. The next one, these are some of my slides. Anyone who wants my slides can look at it. But we're going to just talk for about 5-10 minutes here. Okay, the next thing is, how do you know when you're doing a math problem that you're not going to give up? What makes us not give up? How do you know you're not going to give up?
when I don't get it right, I just have to find the answer because it's the curiosity of trying.
So we keep on persisting. We have a STEM crowd here. So we're already tuned into math here. So the issue here is already we have a positive attitude. Look, I want to make sure I hear from everyone. What do you do? How do you make sure that you don't give up in a math problem? You study? And what do you do during your study period? You write? Take notes? So in other words, I want us all to listen in to what we do to help us get over any math fears, any math anxiety, so that we can deal with the subject positively and raise the question, what do we do when we're faced with a difficult math problem? 56% here think math is worthwhile. But still it's not everybody. Some people think it's a waste of time. What do you think? You think math is a waste of time? Why not?
Because it's in my everyday living.
We just heard it. We just heard applications to jobs. We just heard how it's used in daily life. We heard about a bank. We heard it's used at the store and at the grocery. So math needs to be worthwhile. We need to develop a positive attitude to math. We want to learn math. We think about math positively. 73% said math was useful. Well, that comes off the what we just learned. And 56%, that's not big enough for me, but 56% are confident in math. How do we increase our confidence? What do you do to increase confidence in math?
Try his best to remember or at least focus what you're really strong at in any topic of like that.
Try your best.
Whether it's like if you know that much about algebra, advance it forward, you try to connect it with other problems that you.
So keep on persisting, try to focus, and keep on working at the math problems. Okay, let's see if there's any specific slides here that I really want here. You can learn the math, you can learn skills. Math can be fun. We won't probably have time to discuss any of these things. Very important. What do we think? All of us are here to complete mathematics. How do we improve our math grades? Math is a very fundamental part of our disciplines. What do we do to make sure we'll have good math grades? What do you do?
Well, I keep going to the math lab.
Math lab? Do you find it to be helpful?
Very.
Are there any other suggestions besides thinking of these ideas? What do you do to improve your math grade?
Math lab.
Math lab? Any other ideas? Do you have any concepts about this? What do you do to improve your math grades?
I can do it myself, but I don't know.
We're fortunate here. Right, we have a fortunate bunch here.
You could also team up with classmates.
Team up with your classmates, talk to the professor, talk to other students, go to the math center. And that's very important for improving your math grades. Okay, let me see if there's any other, we have to go quickly. We can always be positive about math. I think in our group we have a good group here who like mathematics. Some people are scared. There are people who are afraid to talk about mathematics. They're scared and anxious. How can we help people who are afraid to tackle math problems? What do you do when you have someone next to you and the person's afraid to do a math problem? What advice can you give that person?
Speak up.
Can they speak up? What if they're afraid? Ask questions. What do you think? Is that the way you would advise a person who's afraid to do math? What do you do?
I mean, sorry,
Any ideas? Yeah.
You try to be very specific with the person and tell them which parts of the math are they really worse at, because then after something they can be better at some other part of the math.
Specific. Be focused with the person. Try to help them with the problems, the actual problems they have, so that they'll get to understand what's going on in the problem. Okay, so math is really a subject where you get focused so that you can understand. We had some of these questions that came up, and I think this group is a pretty pro-math group. We don't find it too boring. Most of us say we can do it. Uncreative? I mean, most of us see usefulness in math here. Okay, what's so special about math? Math has details, problem solving, logic. I'm just going through this quickly. And very often each of the topics that we discuss depends on previous topics so that we learn the math well. Okay, math myths, I think some of those, the clickers dealt with the math myths. And these are some math myths that you see here that people think about. I guess we don't have time for an assessment in here. If we talk about math anxiety, because I'm dealing with the math anxiety part, how do we describe math anxiety? There probably I need some board work for that to describe some concepts. What do you think about math anxiety?
Being anxious about trying to
Being anxious about doing math problems. And how do we help a person who's anxious to do math problems?
Well, I would probably show them like a problem, step by step how to solve it, and point out that math is used in everyday life, so it's something you shouldn't really be anxious about. And there's certain rules that you can follow to solve problems, so it's not that difficult.
So you develop a positive attitude, a supportive attitude, and you say, yes, I can do the math. Try to show where math is related in real life, and work with the person slowly so that they can understand how to deal with the math problem. I guess we won't have time to talk about the geek and the brain and the brain for math. These are myths that deal with mathematics and negative experiences. Getting help, this is very important. The math center, a student next to you, the professor, somebody who you can talk to, who can communicate. The main idea is that you can learn from your mistakes. You take your mistakes and you be positive about the way you learn mathematics. The idea here is that you need to trust yourself. Believe in yourself that you can actually do the problems. And that's the issue. You can actually solve them. Eventually, you'll stop your self-defeating thoughts. I think most of us are okay with the math in here, in this room. So we are pretty positive here. Raise your confidence level. We have a nice confidence level here, but we can bring it up a little more. And take all your subjects that you have, it's not only math, and try to work with them positively so that you can get to learn how to do each of the problems or issues that come in the math, with the math or with the subject matter itself. Think positively. That's really important. Here's a slide where you study with buddies. Okay, that's one concept. You can find yourself in a group. Okay, make sure your group is a positive group when you study math. We were learning about why we have to learn this. Money is an important role. Starting salaries are important here. If you have a math background, math is very much related to a lot of subjects. One of the things I probably won't get to talk about here is the relaxation that we can use when we do math problems. Practice relaxation techniques. Say that you take responsibility for what you don't know in mathematics and try to work with it. Be prepared. Use the study habits. Learn how to take tests. Put yourself in a test situation. Relax, and you'll have a positive attitude to doing mathematics. Okay, are there any questions? Okay. Yeah.
Are you going to have in the future a class that just deals with math anxiety?
That'll be up to you. I've done that before. That was the fastest math anxiety workshop I've ever done. Okay, I've done many of them. Okay, but I'll be happy to do that anytime. Okay, are there any questions? I think Vanessa's still here. Are there any questions about the entire workshop? Okay, good. I'm glad that you came. Thank you for coming. And I hope that you'll come again and hear about this.
Before you leave, we do thank you for joining us today. But for those of you who would like to stay for a more intimate setting, we have a former QCC alumna who graduated from City College with an engineering degree and is currently an engineer. And he can speak a bit about his experiences. John Hendricks. He's more than happy to speak with anyone here who has questions pertaining to either his field or his experiences here and how they helped to inform his experiences. For those of you who have to leave at this moment, I will give you the contact information for Professor Joseph Torelli in our department, those of you who might be considering being a math major and have further questions. I think
Okay.
J at qcc.qe.edu. And this is Professor Berger. And the floor is yours. Is there any questions?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dejan Hendricks. I graduated from QCC, I believe in 2007. It was in 2007, for spring of 2007. After graduating from QCC, I went to City College, in which I continued my education in electrical engineering. And just recently, February of 2010, last year, I received my bachelor's in EE. The importance of math. Mathematics is used in transportation, energy and research physics, healthcare, and most importantly, the IRS. No one laughed at that. As I mentioned before, my interest is in electrical engineering. In terms of the mathematics and my curriculum, approximately 95% of what I learned was math related and physics. It's a tool that's very important in analysis and design. You cannot describe behaviors, physical behaviors, without math. Math can give you, a direction, a magnitude, something. Let's talk about something that I studied in school. Voltage, for example. You can say voltage. You can represent it as a variable, just call it X, but it has some meaning. In the lower level mathematics, you learn X, Y, Z's, and you don't really know why you're learning it. But later on, as you move up the ladder, it's applied. It represents something, and it can be used to describe something. Here I have some books. I have two books of courses. Well, this is not a course. I just bought it to help me to design a receiver and a transmitter. Within this book, this book has a great deal of mathematics. And in order to understand this book, you have to have developed a very good foundation in calculus, Math 120, all the calcs from 1 to 3, differential equations, linear algebra, vector calculus, which is not required in most colleges, but City College, they make you take it. Probability and statistics. So all these courses that you're learning now, you will see them again, but in the practical world. It's very difficult to accept a lot of it now because it's kind of being forced in your mouth, and you don't really see it, but with time you tend to put it all together. An example of something that uses a lot of calculus, for example, is cable television. Transmitting information through coaxial cables requires a lot of calculus knowledge because you have a cylindrical object. The coaxial cables themselves, they're cylindrical, and there are behaviors, or the shapes are described using calculus. The surface, so you can actually see or not see, you can't see charge, but you can determine the amount of information that's transferred. But the point is that it all relates to the mathematics, and a deep understanding of mathematics will also allow you to understand physics and other subjects better, chemistry and whatever else it may be. But it is a fundamental tool. And in order to really develop as a mathematician or an engineer or whatever it may be, you know, the seriousness of it is important, and understanding it and getting comfortable with it. Because like she mentioned, Professor, about the, you know, the relaxation and getting acquainted with the material, it's difficult. You know, initially I spent a lot of hours in the tutoring department here, many hours to get my degree eventually. And over time, you know, you start to see things and you start to develop confidence. But it takes time and it takes persistence. So on that note, you know, I would like to thank you all for having me present, and that's pretty much it.
That really concludes the presentation for today. Of course, if there are any questions, you're welcome to stay. Myself, Dr. Fernandez, who's also had a hand in the workshop, would be happy to discuss any particulars with you if you would like to speak with us one-on-one. But if you'd like to reserve your questions for another time, we suggest that you contact Professor Bertarelli. Thank you for coming.